So my style, as you're going to see, is very open and loose. I enjoy a good conversation, and I'm going to stop my part of the talk several times and ask you to work on paper alone or work with a person near you, have some conversations, and then we'll hear back again after that. And so as a result, I like a lot of interaction whenever possible. That means where I'm really going with that thought is when you have questions, please ask them. Raising hands is usually good, but you know what? Just go ahead and shout the question out. If I don't see you, that's fine too. I am not the sort of presenter who is thrown off course if we get interrupted. So I actually kind of enjoy that energy and feed off of it. All right, so I know that our topic is 21st century skills, the skills that employers are looking for, and we will get there in just a few short moments. But I'm going to take a quick detour into a topic that is related to this, and that's the one you see on the screen behind me about learning science. There is an entire workshop on learning science. Has any of you gone to that workshop on learning science yet this week? Oh, only one of you, okay. So I'm going to ask a question in a minute you were not allowed to answer because you already know, I think, where that question goes. The reason I spend a few moments talking about how learning works and how memory functions is because we have found that this is actually very critical for everything in teaching. It influences every aspect of how you do your syllabus, of how you present your class in lectures, and how you spend the class time, and what kind of assignments you give them, and what the assessments even look like. So all of that, if you're doing it properly, is influenced by this. And so today's topic will be influenced by this when we get to talking about how to do today's topic. So that's why I spend just a brief moment at the very beginning talking about learning. So many of you have the handout in front of you. This handout includes several books and articles about how learning actually works in the brain and what we know about memory, how memories are formed, and especially how you can retrieve memories later on. It used to be this was a little bit more of a mystery, and now I think science has a really complete understanding of how memory actually functions. And so there are many books, as I say, on this worksheet or this handout that tell you how memory functions. But what we have done is we have summarized all of those books into just 6 principles. And the principles have a word each. Each letter that you see there stands for one of the principles. A is short for one of the principles, and N is short for one of the principles, and so forth. So I'm going to try a little experiment here, and maybe you do something like this with your own students. I'm going to have you try to guess what any of these letters refer to, even though you haven't done any of the reading. I've not given you a lecture on this. We're just going to guess blindly. So pick any letter. What do you think that stands for? How memory functions. What's important for memory? What do you think? Remembering is very good. It's close to what the R is. Any letter. Activation, that's definitely a principle here, but it's not what it stands for. Repetition is as what we sometimes say for R, yes. The real answer for R is retrieval practice, and repetition is very much a part of the retrieval practice. What about you? Emotion is actually correct. Did you go to the workshop 2 days ago or yesterday? Yeah. Almost no one gets the emotion one. So that's amazing for that to come up with. It's not writing. No, the W no one gets. So you'll see why when I give you the answer for the W.
Neurology for N?
Neurology it's actually very much related to our topic. This is going to cut out today. Bad battery. I have the other one ready in the hand here. Let's see if that one will work. Neurology is related to our topic, but that is not what the N stands for today. It's still not working, is it? They both have a bad battery. Until the gentleman returns, I will talk louder, unfortunately, for the camera. Yes?
As for stimulation?
Not stimulation, no.
No, skills?
Not skills. I like the guesses. These are good guesses. Sensory is very much related to the actually what the A is. So you're correct. This is a big principle here, but it's not what the S stands for. Evaluation is also close. Okay, so I'm going to give you the answer in a moment. So we'll stop guessing here. But before I give you the answer, let's just debrief. Why did I make you do that? Is there any value at all in guessing before we even talk about it?
To get a first impression, whether it is possible or not. Trying to guess
So as a
how-
teacher, I get an impression of how much they already know. That's a good thing. Stimulate the learning, stimulate the interest in it. Is that what you were saying as well?
Yes, probably.
That's right. So when students and participants first get a chance to guess at things, then they care about it a lot more, right? Versus that universe where I never gave you a moment to think about it. So now when you see the answers, your brain is going to care as opposed to just jumping right into that slide. So very much related to senses, or the sensory system, is attention. And the reason we have to pay attention for memory to happen is that memory is not automatic. Otherwise. This one also has a problem. I'll switch. Okay. Attention, as I said, is the first one because there's no chance at memory if you're not able to pay focused attention to the topic. N stands for novelty because the brain is attracted to novelty, and when something is novel, it sort of stands out for the brain a little bit more. It makes a better chance you're going to remember it. The S is for spacing, which is a little difficult to explain. What it means is the way you have to try to remember things has to be spaced out over time, distributed. So we said R is retrieval. You have to have distributed retrieval practice. The opposite of that, where you do it all at once, in English we say cramming. The students will wait until the night before the test and do all of their studying all at one time. In Arabic, hashi, stuffing? Hashu? Yeah, stuffing, right? The night before the test. That's all, they're just stuffing their brain. And that actually works for the test, believe it or not. That's why the students do it. But they don't remember it later on. Long-term memory requires spaced out practice. Okay? The letter W for the word why, what we really wanted to say there was context. When the context is known and understood, then memory is much more improved. But it didn't fit the acronym of answer. So we came up with why, which is sort of like context. Why are we learning this? The reason emotion is here is that the structure of the brain where short-term memories go, it's highlighted in the red in the diagram, is the hippocampus. And when the brain decides overnight which memories go from the hippocampus into the long-term memory through sleeping, well, that means that the hippocampus is involved in deciding what gets stored in long-term memory. And the hippocampus is the emotional center of the brain, one of the emotional centers of the brain. So your strong emotions actually dictate whether something is easy or hard to learn. So if a student likes your class, it's easier to learn that material. And if they hate your class, it's very hard for them to learn the material, just from a brain point of view. Very difficult to understand. And then retrieval we talked about already. So yes?
Should be like positive emotion? Or?
Positive emotion will make it easier to remember the facts of the class. Which to my mind is actually a huge thing to remember and realize that the students have to enjoy being in class and enjoy learning this material. And it suggests that it's our job to make them enjoy it, not just put the information in front of them. They should actually enjoy it so that they become better learners, and that makes me a better teacher. Okay, and I think this is the last slide on the whole system I'm talking about here. Your senses receive a lot of input all the time, and your brain is usually ignoring most of it, right? Because you can only pay attention to one thing at a time. It has to go through that filter. That's why attention is important. It is also why students cannot multitask. Students think that they can switch between doing different things, that they can use their phone at the same time that they're taking notes, that they could, talk to somebody and still listen. It's hard to do. So it goes to your working memory, and then with sleep it becomes long-term memory, and then you have to have practice retrieving it so that you can use it on the test. Right? That practice retrieval is really what most of this is about. And you're going to see me coming back to that a couple of different times today, what retrieval practice is like. In fact, let's do one right now. Don't look at your notes. What does the R stand for? Retrieval, that's right. What about the N? Novelty, right. So if I had taught this to you in order, A-N-S-W-E-R, you would start to remember it in order. And then if I asked you out of order, it would be, wait a minute, it's a little more difficult all of a sudden. And you should do that, actually, when you're doing retrieval practice. You should mix it up. It's called interleaving, a concept that students should do. The reason I say all of this is that, students should know this. That's number one. But number two, there are things we can do as teachers that make them do this. And you're going to hear me talk about that a couple of different times. If we know that the spaced retrieval practice is the right way for them to learn, that means we should actually give them tests which ask them to retrieve things from long ago, not just retrieve things from this chapter right now. That key word there is cumulative, right? You should actually be giving cumulative tests all along the semester. And so this is just a thing about teaching. It's not about today's topic. There was a hand.
Because you're saying why. Novelty is why, right? This is what you say, you couldn't figure it out. And I'm just thinking that when the memory works, there are some internal factors, some external factors. Like whispering. Whispering. When you hear a lot of sounds from BBC, from CNN, from different places around you, it's a lot of whispering, the sounds coming, and your memory being inquisitive, like you are curious and starts working for that. So I don't know whether you would consider replacing WY with something like whispering from the surroundings.
Well, it's the context of the material really means the relevance of the material. So why we are learning this. So a classic example would be a math class where the students do not understand, why am I learning this part of math? I'm never going to use this math. That is a moment where the brain resists imprinting long-term memories because it feels there is no relevance to me going forward. So that's the why I must learn this. When it's present, the brain will have a better chance of remembering it and understanding it. Whispering, as you're talking about, to me sounds closer to attention, that I have a problem focusing on only one thing if there are multiple things happening around me. Okay, this is really, that's just the beginning foundation piece. Turning now to today's topic, which is preparing students for really their careers. And you're going to see me break this into a number of different sections. They don't correspond exactly with when we're going to take our breaks. I just remembered I should caution you that I've been told we must take the breaks at exactly the right moment and end them at exactly the right moment. So we will be, so that I don't get in trouble, I will stop at the right time. And then so that I don't get in trouble, I will start at the right time, even though not all of you were back at that moment. Anyway, the breaks, before the first break, certainly we will talk about why we are learning employment skills for the students. There's that why already, right? You as students need the context of why this is important. And then we'll talk about one of the first ones, global fluency, turning the students into global citizens. And then we'll have much more after the break. Okay, so we're going to start already with you having a quick conversation with the people around you. Why in the world would faculty care about whether students have employability skills? Why do we care? So I'm going to give you just a quick 30 seconds. Have a quick conversation with anyone around you. See if there's even a list of things. Why do we care that students have employment skills? I think we're around the topic that I hoped we would be at, which is we want the students to be able to succeed at the end of the day because we care about the students, right? I think it is true for most of us. If we're in this profession, if we're teaching for a living, we care about people. We care that the students actually succeed. I know it's not the money, right? Tell me that you're not teaching because this is the best money you can make possible. That's not true for most people, right? They can make better money doing something else. You do this because you like being able to help students and then being able to sustain themselves. So at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do, is to want to see students succeed and to make a difference. Now there's some external reasons we would care also. So on the screen behind me are several ranking organizations. They rank universities. Have you ever heard of any of these? Only a couple of you? Yeah? Okay. Oh, you weren't all raising your hands, but you all said yes. All right, so these are important for your university leadership. They care about your ranking within Times Higher Ed or the QS World rankings because these rankings do important things. They sometimes lead to more money, more opportunities for the whole university. So the ranking is something your teachers care about. I'm sorry, your administrators care about. And KFU does pretty well. In the Arab region, the QS rank is number 22. So the university wants to see these numbers go up, and these numbers are based on things like research, but then a little bit also on things like employment and the amount of money that people make when they graduate the university. So to the extent you care about them, you would be lined up with what the university cares about. And that's a good moment to have when your interests are aligned with the university interests. But I understand that's a small one. I get that. I want to share with you something that's going on in our country, in the United States. The concept is across the top of the slide. It's called performance-based funding. And as you might imagine, performance means that if you score well on certain ideas, certain rankings, they call them metrics, then you are performing better than other places near you. And now what's being displayed on the map there is my country with the places that have performance-based funding in place. The funding part, what that means is when your university does well, you get more money. When your university does poorly, you get less money. So what sorts of things are they ranking the universities on? Well, they are ranking them on some things that are out of your control in the classroom, but on some things that you can maybe touch and improve for the students. So specifically number 2, so how much money they make when they're in a job 1 year after graduation. That's one of the things our university is graded on. We get more money if they make a lot of money. We get less money if they make less money. And then also things like, I'll use the pointer here, numbers 4 and 5 refer to whether they stay enrolled in the university and if they get finished fast enough. Our state is interested that students not stay as students for a long time. And so we get extra performance money when they graduate fast. Now that does touch your lives because there's pressure on our teachers to make sure that the students pass the class the first time. When the students are not passing the class, they're in danger of leaving the university because they hate it. That's bad for us. And then also not graduating on time. So there's real pressure that the students are learning in the class and that they are getting good enough grades. I thought that was an interesting background for us as we imagine like why do we care about the students succeeding in their eventual careers. If there's one slide before break that is perhaps the summary slide, this is the one. This slide tells you what are the skills that employers are looking for in students that graduate from college. So I'll take several minutes to explain what's on the slide. In fact, it's a little hard to read, so I'll read some of them out to you. The top says NACE, which is short for the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And what that means is, of course, the American is the national. So the American colleges and employers have an association where they talk to each other about making sure a university knows here's what we want the students to be able to do. They have to have these skills. And if you look at the skills, you'll see a pattern. I'll ask you about the pattern when we're done talking about them. Critical thinking and problem solving. So all of us probably think about critical thinking. Almost every professor I've ever talked to says, yes, I teach critical thinking. But it means different things in different disciplines. And the employers really want problem solving specific for your discipline. And by that they usually mean messy problems. You know what a messy problem is? Anyone ever heard that term before? Another word for it is ill-defined problem. A well-defined problem is you know exactly what it is you're supposed to solve for. And you even know how am I going to go about getting that solution. An ill-defined problem, a poorly defined problem, is one where you don't actually know exactly, am I going to have certainty that this is really the right answer? There's too much that you don't know, too many unknowns. And that's what they want, is students to be able to problem solve when there's too many unknowns. And that's not a skill we usually focus on, is it, at the college level? Number 2, oral and written communications. 3, teamwork. It also says collaboration. 4, digital technology. So we're going to talk about all of these at some point today. 5, leadership. And 6, professionalism. And they also have here written work ethic. You know what work ethic means for an employer? What does somebody with a poor work ethic look like? When they're sitting there in the job in front of their computer, what are they doing?
Playing games.
They're playing games. They're on their phone. They're browsing the internet that's not related to their work. That's a bad work ethic. So what they mean is just get to work, right? Actually do your work. And that's a problem for employers. So number 7 is the first one we're not going to do much with today, career management. Career management, what employers say that students are not ready for, is thinking about how am I going to progress in my career? What's my 5-year plan, my 10-year plan? And then once that's known, then I can do certain things to make sure I get there. And that's not something that, it feels more like a mid-career thing, and I don't think it's great for us to focus on career planning at the college level. But number 8, we will, in fact, not only do, we will do this next, global intercultural fluency, so that students are what is sometimes called global citizens. They think globally. Okay, so this is our roadmap of what we're going to talk about. And as I said, I think it coalesces into something of a pattern. How would you define all of these, maybe just with one big term?
Professional skills.
Professional skills, I heard another idea. 21st century skills, that's the title I came up with, yeah. 21st century skills. You get extra points. No, I bet you know the term, it's not coming to you. Soft skills. Soft skills. Right? So the hard skills, what are the hard skills? Well, that's the discipline knowledge or the specific discipline skill and technique, right? So if you're in chemistry, a hard skill is knowing exactly how to do the skill of titration, right? That's a dexterity skill. But a soft skill, that's these things. And they apply to almost every discipline, right? Everyone can see your own discipline in these, right? Okay, what's on screen right here is a lot of words, but it's just a quick example of how you might take these idea of soft skills and make it relevant for the students in your syllabus. This is an example of part of a syllabus where someone, this is a religion studies professor, has taken these words like critical thinking and oral communication and leadership and built sentences around them that's really making an argument for the students. This class is going to teach you some soft skills that you're going to need and use in the future. And it's a pretty powerful thing, actually. If you do that on your syllabus, you're making the case right from the beginning that this class is relevant to them. If you teach lower division classes where sometimes the students are not in the major yet, then sometimes they struggle with the idea that I don't care about this class, I don't need this class. It's not teaching me anything I need for the future. This is a way around that. It combats that. Because then the students, if they read it and you spend the time talking about it, they understand this is relevant for their future. Okay, and now I understand that the first slides I showed you were about the American Association. So I also thought to go find a study from Saudi Arabia. In fact, it's from Dammam. It's in your area. It's a few years old now, but in this study they found that 78% of the employers felt that students were not ready. They did not have the right skills. 78%, right here in the area. Students are not ready after college. And the top of the list comes loyalty and hard work, work ethic, excellent timekeeping and commitment, so time management. What they do with their time, their ability to get things done on time. We're going to come back to that one, I think. Ability to work in a team. This is all sounding very familiar. English language competence. So not just oral and written communications, but specifically English. So when we talk about that later this morning, we're going to focus specifically on how do we improve English language, spoken and written. And then computer literacy, the same technology literacy that was on the previous list. So it's not everything from the American list, but quite a few that are overlapped. Just so you understand, this is actually a global phenomenon. It's not just the bad American high schools and colleges to blame. It's everywhere. Okay. So here comes our next opportunity for you to think and talk with your colleagues. I'm going to give you a little bit longer to do this one. I would like you to come up with a sentence, a definition of what global thinking is. So if you're working in two people or a group, that's all right. But one person write down, what is the sentence? What is the definition of global thinking? You have about 2 minutes for that. Who's ready to volunteer a definition of global thinking? Right up front.
I think it's always about connecting the smaller picture image with the larger one, be it a problem or an idea or a solution, or for example, you can even take advantage of other solutions that are presented elsewhere and adapt it in your society and vice versa.
Excellent. So something about connecting smaller and larger, both problems and solutions, but I'm even going to say systems, right? You're thinking about a system concept of small and large and the connections between them. Who's got a different definition?
Integration of diversified minds.
Integration of diversified mind, or diverse minds.
Diverse minds.
Diverse minds, yes. Okay, so different minds, and then you're integrating all of them.
Amalgamating.
Amalgamation in the back.
And then our problem and solution domain is now global. For example, the employer is not getting good employees from my university, he will go to another university or another country. So I have to be very careful.
Good. So the key word for me in what you said was actually now, right? The problems and solutions that we have are now global. But there's a recognition that maybe in the past we were allowed to think locally, and that might have been enough. But it's not enough anymore to think locally. We have to think globally about employees and future employment. We also have to think globally about problems, right? Global migration of people, global problems of water shortages, global problems of climate change. The Amazon is on fire right now. Do we care? Well, we do. It's our oxygen too, right? So many of the problems that we face are global problems. Excellent. Is there any other ideas you want to share? Yes, please.
Something like developing and maintaining the awareness of belonging to a multicultural environment.
I like that. Belonging. You put emphasis on that, and I would too. Belonging to a multicultural environment. So it's a global village, and it's not enough to just think very, very small about our place in it. I actually don't know about Saudi students and KFU students in general if they have that problem. American students have that problem. They don't know the map of the world. They don't think about outside of America. It's a very arrogant set of students and undergraduates. But maybe you don't have that problem entirely. Yes?
It's like a nuclear weapon in North Korea, you remember?
About nuclear weapons in North and South Korea, right. Well, in America, we recognize that's a problem. We will probably be the target if there is a fight. So that one we recognize. But again, to the idea of multicultural global village, it's going to be everybody's problem. If somebody blows up Los Angeles, the whole world is going to feel the effects. Right? The global economy is now very much tied together. In fact, I think is the Saudi Riyal tied to the dollar?
Yes.
Right. So if we go to war and our dollar is very damaged, you will feel the effects in this country. There's an example for you. Okay.
Everyone is going to feel the effect. But this phenomenon of global thinking, it has many characteristics. It is multifaceted sort of. And one of them is how you are going to govern, like a unified, universally recognized, acceptable set of norms, right? Without any sort of discrimination when it comes to the gender, religion, or X, Y, Z. So it's a set of norms as well, which are universally acceptable and recognized.
Yeah, that's a very advanced understanding of it, right? I think we do need to start with our students perhaps and make sure that they know the more fundamentals, that they belong to a system of different cultures and they need to respect the different cultures and understand them. I'd be happy if we get that far with everybody. But you're quite right that operating within them and knowing all of the norms would be really where we want to go ultimately.